All right, folks, the final showdown with the Federal Reserve is underway. President Trump versus too late Jerome Powell, and the Federal Reserve making their decision today, just like the Bank of Japan earlier this week, to leave rates unchanged, delivering more pain to Main Street Americans, and also statements in the press conference that show us where this battle goes next as President Trump tries to take over the Federal Reserve as we know it. And Jerome Powell stands his ground, confirming that he's going to stay on as a board governor today in his final press conference as chairman. So we're going to break down what this means for you, the markets, and your investments in today's update. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys subscribe and hit that notification bell. We are getting some people saying that they can't find our content. It's not showing up. They're having to search us. So make sure you subscribe, and then make sure you hit that notification bell so YouTube will let you know every time we drop a fresh update, and we try to keep them coming every single day. And yes, we're going to tell you how we're making money in this market that's moving back down towards the end of this episode as well. Let's roll. Fed Chair nominee Warsh approved by the Senate Banking Committee today. He now advances to a full Senate vote, and then he will be confirmed as the new Fed Chair. So Jerome Powell delivers the FOMC interest rate decision today, which is to not move rates at all, right, leaving them unchanged. But in the press conference here, where he delivered some statements and took some questions from the press, this is where he revealed that this showdown is definitely going to be going on for quite, a little bit longer. He's not stepping aside. He's stepping aside as chairman, happy to do so, but not stepping aside as governor. Now, the full breakdown and summary of the statement here from Kobesi Letter's spot on, so we're just going to run through it. Near-term U.S. inflation expectations have risen. The Fed sees U.S. PCE inflation at 3.5% in March 2026, well above their 2% target. And of course, energy prices will push up near-term inflation. As I record this update, we're watching oil spiking back up $108.50 on the WTI crude oil measurement as we have worries that it's going to escalate again in the Middle East. We'll talk about that more in another update. Middle East situation is contributing to uncertainty. Yep. Current Fed policy stance is appropriate, and Powell will remain on the Fed board as governor after May 15th. So a new era of Fed policy is ahead for us with Kevin Warsh as chair, but you have to understand that this is, board of governors decide what's going to happen with interest rates and policy. So it's not just the chairman that decides the interest rates. So although Trump's pick, Kevin Warsh, will come in to chair the Fed, are we actually going to see that change? See, this is where the final showdown really, why I'm titling today's update, The Final Showdown with the Federal Reserve. The big statement here, and it's a small shift, but it's a big one. For months, the Fed has characterized inflation as somewhat elevated. Today, that changed. Amid surging energy prices, the Fed now says that inflation is elevated. So, it's absolutely ridiculous that we have to sit here and decode what the Federal Reserve Chairman is saying in his statements to try to understand, what it means and what direction they're trying to move things. But here we are. And the admittance that inflation is back is what we got today. It's not just somewhat elevated, it's back. It's here, and it is elevated. And if the situation gets worse, in the Middle East and some of the other things we're watching, it's not going to slow down anytime soon. Now, understand that the Federal Reserve, the way that they've been bringing pain to the Main Street American, the middle class and poor, and really everybody, right, is that they've kept rates higher for longer. And they've done so using the excuse of the tariffs last year, right? April 7th, Liberation Day. We saw this huge market crash. And it allowed the Federal Reserve to say President Trump's tariffs are why we can't lower rates anymore. Now, we have trillions in real estate that need to be rolled over as far as residential and commercial mortgages and loans. We have a private credit crisis unfolding. This is impacting more than just the crypto market being in a bear market, right? Stocks are at all-time high. They seemingly just don't care about what the Fed does with rates, what's going on with the war. And I think that this is a final exit liquidity pump for the stock market, as a reset's about to occur over in the stock market. But in the meantime, the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell have been able to blame President Trump's tariffs last year, and then this year, right now, they get to blame the Iran war. So the Federal Reserve has had the excuses from last year to this year to be able to say, hey, don't blame us for inflation still being hot. We're doing everything we can. We're moving our levers, but we can blame President Trump's tariffs. We can blame President Trump's war in Iran. And that's what they're doing. That's what Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is doing on his way out. But is he fully going to be exiting? That's the next question and why we call it the final showdown. He announces that he will stay on the Fed board after his term as Fed chair ends on May 15th. Powell says he looks to maintain a low profile as Fed governor. See, he loves to do this. I'm just going to keep a low profile. I'm going to step aside over here as a Fed governor. I want to make sure that, we're not having to worry about politics, is what he says. And one of the first questions that he was asked at the press conference was on this issue. And I want to hear his statements. I want you to listen to his statements right here.
But these legal actions by the administration are unprecedented in our 113-year history, and there are ongoing threats of additional such actions. I worry that these attacks are battering the institution and putting at risk the thing that really matters to the public, which is the ability to conduct monetary policy without taking into consideration political factors. It is so important for our economy, for the people that we serve, that they can depend over time on a central bank that operates that way, free of political influence. But
Jerome Powell wants to make sure that the Federal Reserve operates free of political influence. Don't you love it? Don't you love it? So in the meantime, he's going to stay on as governor, and he specifically cited later in the press conference that he wants to make sure that the investigation ends. Right? So, they were going to bring criminal charges, part of this investigation lead into that. And for now, the Department of Justice said that we're dropping the charges, but the investigation could reopen. And so for that reason, Jerome Powell's saying they still want to play politics. They still want to come after us. So I'm going to have to stay on as Federal Reserve Board governor until the investigation closes and is ended. So this brings us to the final showdown where President Trump, and we broke this down years ago, back in 2021. Basically in the first year that I was making content, we were covering all these things that President Trump was doing with the executive orders. We were trying to break this down so that people could understand this is the first president that we've had since JFK that was going up against the central banks. Now, when you go up against this power, when you go up against this influence, right, you're stepping on some toes of some guys who don't mess around, some guys and gals. And that's what President Trump is doing. And so President Trump already has the Treasury. And we saw the executive order in his first term where basically the objective was to move the Federal Reserve kind of underneath the wing of the Treasury and under his control. Well, now he gets to do that with Fed Chair Kevin Warsh going in. So we're watching as President Trump dismantles some of these things, he's leaving some of the structures intact. For example, the Federal Reserve. But he's not saying we're going to end the Federal Reserve tomorrow. And that's a big hurdle, right? That's a big jump. And I'm a fan of it. I woke up to all of this, all about money, and all of my whole journey started by learning about the Federal Reserve with Ron Paul running for president in 2008 and in 2012 when I was in high school. That's where all of this starts for me, is on end the Federal Reserve. And I wish that we could start the conversation at let's end the Fed. Now, we should at least be able to get an audit of the Federal Reserve. We should at least have over half of America that even knows what the Federal Reserve is. That's your first problem. And so this is what President Trump is going up against. And for now, he's leaving the structure intact. And he's putting his chairman in power. And then we're going to have Fed Governor Powell still remaining. And we're going to get to see, what happens with this showdown. And I want folks to understand that we have two forces converging that are very bullish for the digital asset market based off of these events. And it's a new Fed chair that's willing to cooperate and a Federal Reserve that's going to cooperate with the president in lowering interest rates. By the way, inflation's coming. It never left, and it is going to get worse again, in my opinion. It's not going away anytime soon. So we have to understand that. Yes, our assets are going to pump crypto. It's going to get very bullish again, but I don't expect stuff to get much cheaper anytime soon. But And for these reasons, you want to make sure that you have exposure to these markets, to these assets, which are going to, could be a lifesaver, could be what's, maintains and preserves the wealth that you have already built over 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, depending on where you're coming from. Our audience is so diverse, from young cats, 20 years, all the way up to folks over 70 years old. But what we're watching here is the debasement of the dollar, and President Trump and Fed Chair Kevin Warsh are going to come in here, and they're not going to be worried about debasing that dollar at all. That's not going to be the biggest concern. They want to drive growth. They want to drive growth by any means, even if it means sacrificing the dollar. And to get growth going back again, you need those rates back down. And so in combination with some of the drastic measures President Trump's doing with tariffs, with war, and then with a Fed chair who's going to just drop the Fed funds rate, you are going to get that environment for that next bull run. Now, this converges with another catalyst, which is the Clarity Act and regulations for digital assets. And by the way, this new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, does have exposure to digital assets in his portfolio. So this brings us up to the final showdown, and I believe that the final showdown takes us to the next bull run. In the meantime, the markets are coming back down, and so we need to be ready to take advantage of that. And one other thing, I want you guys to be ready to take advantage of the alien dip. That one's coming right here soon. The U.S. government has officially confirmed plans to release UFO files, and President Trump in a press conference today says that we're likely going to be seeing that here soon. So, for everything that we've laid out here today, you get one more drop before the big pop, and that drop is taking place right now. And I happen to be short Bitcoin, full disclosure, and that's how we're making money right now in this bear market. We went in on Zabecki. Zabecki's off on a tear. We're making a bunch of money on that one. And then I went long oil a couple weeks ago, made 30% profit on that trade. And now I am in a Bitcoin short that I entered up here at 79,235. Bitcoin trading as I record this update just past 5 p.m. on the East Coast. We're at 75,600, and Bitcoin already dropped just below 75,000, a full 5% drop. And if you're in my Discord group, I shared a chart. I was doing some research yesterday on the price action leading up to, during, and after the Bitcoin conference for the past 7 years. It tells the full story. Basically, you're going to get, some call it the Bitcoin conference curse. Buy the rumor, sell the news is essentially what it is, where you get this hype, this pump, this rally leading up to it, and then it comes back down. And it's happened we've had the XRP Vegas conference taking place at the same time as well too. And so we've kind of seen the same thing take place with XRP as well. So instead of just sitting on my hands watching it and just crying that crypto's back down today, I figured let's make some money. And so I entered that Bitcoin short. It's in profit right now. I just updated my Discord group I had adjusted my take profit level on this trade, but we're just going to continue to pocket. I'm going to short Bitcoin, pocket that, and then we take that and we can add it to our XRP long exposure. And by the way, if you guys are looking for a platform to get exposure to digital assets, precious metals for your business, I know a lot of people in our community have opened up LLCs, have opened up various entities with your professionals that do your estate planning. You guys have created some entities, maybe a nonprofit or a trust, and they have opened up these treasury accounts, this new product from iTrust Capital, which is a great solution for free institutional grade custody. So while you're just, storing up that treasury for your business, your nonprofit, whatever it is, it's in free institutional grade custody. You don't got to worry about it getting hacked, getting stolen, and you're not going to be paying any AUM fees either. I love that about iTrust Capital, that free institutional grade custody, and only 1% on the trading fees there. So go check out that platform. We have them linked up down below. You can get a $100 funding bonus when you use my link. And they also have, of course, the IRA for your retirement funds and the premium custody account as well too. So a few different products. Go check them out and get that $100 funding bonus when you use my link down below. So we're going to be watching this. We're going to be seeing if the market wants to push on down like it has the past basically 7 years that the Bitcoin conference has been going on. And so the 5%, 6% drop that we've gotten already, I don't think is completed. I'm holding on to my Bitcoin short right now. And then I'm going to be adding to my XRP bags probably around $1.30. Still have buy orders at $1.20 and all the way down to $1 in case we get that escalation that spooks the markets back down one more final time. So we'll keep you guys up to date. Make sure you guys are subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of them. And if you guys appreciate what we're doing, if you could help us out by liking the video on the way out, greatly helps the cause. So everything else is at zachrector.com. And I just want to say thank you for tuning in today. We'll see you guys in the next one. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.